Continue with DAF in KESUVOS. So we start with the top line of DAF. B'bei Rav Amrei, Rav Shari Shmuel Asher ben Ardar Amrei, Rav Asher Shmuel Shari, Amr Menachem bar Yitzhak v'simanecha Eila Mekin La'atzman Eila Mekin La'atzman. So we see over here that each one wants home court advantage. Each one wants to be that their rabbi is the Mako one, right? Interesting. Usually you want your rabbi to be the Machmir one. Over here, everybody wants their rabbi to be the Mako one. Makes sense, I guess. Everybody wants their rabbi to be the Mako one. So B'bei Rav, they argue, no. Rav's the one who allowed you to have bia for the first time on Friday night. B'Naharda, in the hometown of Shmuel, they said, no, you got it wrong. Rav's the one who says Asher. Our rabbi, Shmuel, is the one who says Mutter. So everybody's looking for the heter to have bia for the first time on Friday night. And Rav Nachman says the way to remember it is each one is Mako for themselves. Each one wants them to have the rabbi who's the Mako one. Top of Vav Medala, fourth line. V'Rav Shari. So the question is Rav really Shari? Does Rav really permit one to have bia for the first time on Friday night? Ve'amar Rav Shimi bar Yitzchizki amishmei de Rav. But we see in the name of Rav, Hai misuchriya denizaisa asur lahadoka biyom atava. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, Stimas nekev gigish shemotzian hashechar derech hanekev v'sod minaso bebilei begadim. If you have a barrel of wine, so how do you get the wine in and out? Well, you take the clothing, you take the little shmatas and you stick them in the hole. They don't have fancy things that you can turn and close and open. You have the little shmata. So what's going to happen when you take out the shmata? So when you take and put the shmata back in and out, so atzal adoka mishum schita, it's going to be schita. You're going to be squeezing the actual shmatas of some of the wine, and therefore it's asur to do that on Shabbos. What do we see is asur there? What's the pshat? So what are we bringing that type of case? What's the problem? So how can Rav say that it's mutter to be boel on Shabbos? At the end of the day, what are you going to say? Yes, as we saw yesterday, going through, and we'll go through it a little bit again, but mifkat pakid chiburi mechbar, whether it's a matter of just releasing the dam or making a chabura, at the end of the day, what do we say? We see that it's a davar sheina miskaven, and it's going to be a problem. So I understand over here, it's also davar sheina miskaven. You're not looking, you're just looking to get the wine out, to close up the wine, and yet, even though you're not intending to go ahead and do schita to squeeze, it's going to be a problem. So very nice Friday night, even though you're not intending to bring out the dam, to make a mess, to do an isser of opening up a Pesach or a chabur, as we'll see in a second, it should still be asur. So why does he say that it's actually mutter? How can Rav say it's shari? So we answer...
Isn't the beer worse because it's a pesik ratio on the beer? I mean, you don't have much choice on it.
So let's read one more line. Baruch shekivanta. Or Baruch Chichita. But either one. Either he looked ahead, but we're not going to give the thing. He did not look ahead. He said that Baruch Shekivanta. So he understood the Gemara. So the Gemara is saying, of course, you can't make the comparison. What's the comparison over here? Over there, in the case of the barrel, the reason that it's going to be asur is because it's a psik reisha. What does that mean? That if you cut off the head of an animal, so for sure it's going to die? It's a question. Psik reisha v'lo yamos. Can you cut off the head and the animal's not going to die? So over there, it's going to be asur because at the end of the day, it's inevitable that you're going to do the malacha of schita. However, over here, it's not inevitable that you're going to do the malacha of either chibure mechbar, or again, making a chabura, or opening up a Pesach. Look at Rashi a second, and this is basically cheating, but Rashi does it, so we can cheat too. Rashi says, why is it not a psik ratio here? L'maisa, when you have bia for the first time, there's going to be blood, you're going to be making a Pesach. What's a pshat? Avalkan yeshe bekiyim behatia. In the case of the barrel, and this is going to come up on Amud Beis, in the case of the barrel, you cannot get out the wine or put back the thing without squeezing. There is actually a way, for those that are professionals, there is a way to go ahead and have the bia for the first time without having any dam. If you do it on a certain angle, so without having any dam, and therefore it's not a psik ratio, because then a psik ratio is only when it's inevitable. And we're not only going to see that it's not psik ratio, we're going to see that rov b'kiyim heim on the next DAF. That most people taught and learned in chassan class how to have bia in a way that there's not even going to be dam basulim. Now, we ended the last year by sort of like throwing out a question that this sort of questions the whole gzeira of dam basulim. Not if there's if it's not just that there's a way, but that everybody's aware of the way, then this is what they're going to teach in high school. Then before you know it, where do we have anything about Dam Basulim? We're never going to see Dam Basulim. We're never going to know if anybody's a Basula, not a Basula. We're never going to know if they did Hatiyah, not Hatiyah. Okay, so that's a separate question we're not going to discuss. But right now, the Gemara seems to be saying that what? The Gemara is saying that even if you say not Rov B'Kiyum, even at this point, if you just say that there's a way, so as soon as there's a way to do it, without there being blood, without you opening up a Pesach. Again, the two Isurim, as we'll touch upon, which we've seen already, the two possible Isurim that the Gemara has brought up when you have Biyah for the first time at Shabbos, is either making a Chabura, when you draw out the blood, you're making a Chabura on Shabbos, or you're doing Binyan, as crazy as it sounds, you're opening up a Pesach, a new opening. So at the end of the day, we're saying that, it's a Psik Reisha, it should be Asr on Shabbos, even if you're not having Kavanah for that. What are you having Kavanah for? Seemingly just to have Hana. You're having kavanah just to have biyah for the first time. You're not having kavanah. You don't want the blood. If anything, the blood is messy. You don't care if it's open or not. If anything, it's better if she's still a basula next time. Everybody says a basula is better than a beula. So at the end of the day, what's the problem? It's a psik reisha. It's not a psik reisha because there are ways to do it without going ahead and having dam. And that's the difference between the case of that and the case of the barrel of wine. For Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav Halacha Kerebi Yehuda. For Rav Chanan Barami Amar Shmuel Haracha Kerebi Shimon. But you see over here that it's Kerebi Shimon. Rav Chia Baravin Manila Belogavre Rav Amar Halacha Kerebi Yehuda Ushmuel Amar Halacha Kerebi Shimon. So what do we see over here? We see over here that it's not a case of a psik reisha, and therefore it's okay that he should be able to say. Let's go back a second. I want to make sure we have this right. V'Rav Shari, is it true that Rav is Shari? We see that Rav says over there that it's aser. It's aser to do the thing with the wine. No, that's a separate case because psik reisha v'lo yamas. But in our case, where it's not a psik reisha, it would be mutter, and therefore Rav could say Shari. Now we have a problem. V'Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav Halacha Kerebi Yehuda. The problem is that only works if you hold like Rabbi Shimon, who holds what? Davar she'ena miskaven. If you don't have intent, then it's mutter, except one in the case of psik reisha. The problem is that Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that a davar she'ena miskaven is going to be asur. And even though you don't have kavanah to make the blood, and even though it's not a psik reisha, Lamaisa davar she'ena miskaven is going to be asur. So how can Rav? Now we're going with a separate question. Okay, very nice. Shmuel holds that it's not a psik reisha, but Lamaisa Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a davar she'ena miskaven is going to be asur. So how can Rav say that you can have biyah on Friday night for the first time? Yes, it's a davar she'ena miskaven. You don't have intent to have blood, but lamaisa, even if you don't have intent for the blood, and you're just having the intent for the anal, lamaisa it's asur. So how can he say mutter? For Rav Chanan Barami Amar Shmuel, halach Rabbi Shimon. Shmuel is the one who holds like Rabbi Shimon, but Rav doesn't. For Rav Chia Barav and Masin Label Gorav, Rav Chia makes the question even stronger, because in the first question, the first way you quote, you can say, no, you're misquoting Rav. Over here, we see Rav Amar Halach Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel Amar Halach Rabbi Shimon. Straight out of the words of Rav's mouth, taking the words out of his mouth, Rav says Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda. So how can Rav hold? You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't eat your cake, as Mr. Steinfeld says, and you can't eat your cake and have it too, whichever one it is. But at the end of the day, he says that it's like Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda. If Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda, so then how can you go ahead and have biyah on Friday night? L'maisa, even though you're not intending to have blood, you're not intending to make a Pesach, davar she'ena miskaven is aser. La'olam Rav Rabbi Yehuda sfiralei. So Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. So then how can you say? So now if you go back to yesterday, you remember, we'll just say it outside quickly, there are ways to do it even if you hold davar she'ena miskaven is aser. Why? Lahach lishna da amar dam mifgad pakid mekalkel hu Ital Pesach. Again, there's two ways to understand yesterday's Gemara, or 2 days ago Gemara. There's two options here. Either the dam is mifgad pakid, which simply means it's separated from the tissue, and therefore when you go in and have biyah for the first time, you're not necessarily making a chabura. So if dam is mifgad pakid, you're not making a chabura, assuming you're doing it for the dam and not for the Pesach, it's going to be mutter. And if you say it's chibura mechbar, that it's connected, so then it might still be mutter if you hold lahanas atzmo. You're doing it for yourself, for your hana, not for the dam. So let's see the Gemara inside. Again, lahach lishna de amar dam mifgad pakid. Again, we're trying to figure out how Rav can say it's mutter to have biyah on Friday night, even if you hold the davar she'ena miskaven is aser. So if you call that dam mifgad pakid, that you can have biyah in terms of chabura, because at the end of the day there is no isser of chabura because the blood is already separated. Fine. However, mekalkel hu Ital Pesach, because again, mifgad pakid, the dam. So the dam is separate. Let's say this outside. The dam is separate, therefore you're not doing a chabura. But lamaisa, when you have biyah, what are you doing? You're creating a Pesach. It's a davar she'ena miskaven. Too bad. Davar she'ena miskaven is asur. So how are you going to say it's mutter? Because mifgad pakid, you're doing it mifgad pakid. L'dam sarich, you're doing it for the dam. But the Pesach comes memela. You're doing it for the dam, so that's not a problem. But lemaisa the dam, when you do it for the dam, which is not a chabura because it's already separated, mifkat pakid, but lemaisa you're making a pesach. I didn't have intent to make a pesach. Too bad. You hold davar she'eino miskaven is aser. So I didn't have intent to make a pesach. So why is it going to be okay? So either you hold like Rabbi Shimon who holds davar she'eino miskaven is going to be mutter. But we're saying over here that Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda, davar she'eino miskaven is aser. So again, how can Rav say like Rabbi Yehuda? Mifkat pakid, very nice. Very nice, you took care of the dam. The dam's not an issue because there's no, forget about a kavana. There's no isser by the dam because it's separated already. Lemaisa, you're making a pesach when you have bia the first time. And you hold that even though it's not your kavana to make a pesach, it's aser to make a pesach, it's aser, davar she'eino miskaven is aser. How can you hold? So he'll say to you, no, I hold like Rabbi Yehuda that davar she'eino miskaven is aser, but that's only when you're doing something without the kavana, and you ended up doing misakin, you ended up doing a good thing. But if you're being mekalkel, if the davar she'eino miskaven is ruining something, then it's going to be mutter. Well, what are you ruining here? Well, there's two ways to look at a pesach. Either a pesach is a good thing because it makes it easier to have bia next time. But one can also taina that having a pesach is a bad thing because being with a besula is much more enjoyable, it's much better. And therefore, again, he's saying, the dam is not an issue. You're making a pesach, it doesn't matter. Because the pesach is a davar she'eino miskaven. You hold davar she'eino miskaven is still aser. You're right, I hold davar she'eino miskaven is aser, but it's only aser when it's a benefit. And over here, when I'm making the pesach, it's not a benefit. It's really a bad thing for me, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be as enjoyable next time. She's not going to be a besula next time. So even though I hold davar she'eino miskaven is aser, by mekalkel, where I'm destroying something, because again, the malachas are only in a constructive way, except for certain malachas. When I'm doing a destructive force, the pesach that I'm making, which I don't have kavanah to make, it's a destructive thing, because now she's not going to be a besula next time. In that case, then I'm going to say that that's the heter, and therefore it's mutter to have it on Friday night. Now go the other way. Chibure mechbar. If you hold that the blood is actually part of the tissue, and therefore when you have bia the first time, it's going to be aser because you're making a chabura. Well, that's only if it's ledam hutzarech. That's only if you're doing it for the dam. If you're just doing it for the hanas atzmo, if you're doing it for your own hana, let's see inside. Lahach lishna damar dam chibure michbar mekalkel bechaburahu. Interesting. Okay, so if you're doing ledam tzarech, so then it's going to be a problem. But if you're doing it lahanas atzmo, so now why are you having bia with her? You're doing it for herself. You're doing it for the hana. Fine, you're doing it for the hana. But lemaisa, the blood still comes. Chibure mechbar, and blood is aser on Shabbos if it's a chibure mechbar. So what's the pshat here? So chibure mechbar, the blood comes. So you could do the whole like Rabbi Shimon who holds that davar she'eino miskaven is mutter. But Rav, you just held like Rabbi Yehuda that davar she'eino miskaven is aser. Davar she'eino miskaven is aser. Very nice when you're having the bia. It's for your own hana, and you're not intending to have blood. But lemaisa, blood's going to come. And in this pshat of chibure mechbar, not only is blood coming, but blood is coming as part of a chabura, and therefore it's aser on Shabbos. So he's going to say, no, again, even though you're right, I hold that a davar she'eino miskaven is aser. In this case, the blood that's coming, and it's not bekavana, it's still aser. No, here it's mutter because it's mekalkel and not mitaking. How would chabura be mitaking? How would having blood be mitaking? Well, the good thing about having blood is that it establishes her virginity. If you find the blood, so then she's clearly hasn't had bia before. Nowadays, it's very common. That's not. We don't have time to besulim nowadays. Nowadays, it's very common for a woman to lose her dam besulim beforehand, horseback riding the way that we do, whatever it is, and therefore we say that if a woman doesn't have blood the first time, it doesn't necessarily mean that she had bia between. But over here, it's mekalkel bechaburi saying because when she doesn't have because when the blood comes out, what does it do? What did we say before? What's the negative thing? It destroys her virginity. So at the end of the day, even though you're right, even though I had hana for myself, I was intending to have hana for myself, at the end of the day, what? At the end of the day, you brought out blood, and according to this pshad, blood on Shabbos is making a chabura. It's a davar she'eino miskaven, you didn't intend for the blood, you just want to have hana for yourself, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you hold davar she'eino miskaven is still aser. You're right, I hold davar she'eino miskaven is aser, but it's only aser when it's for a benefit. And over here, it's not for my benefit, it's actually a makalkel, it's a destructive thing. So therefore, the blood that comes out is causing her not to be a virgin anymore. If it destroys her virginity, virginity, that's not a good thing. Even though it's a davar she'eino miskavin, in general, davar she'eino miskavin should be aser. A davar she'eino miskavin, where it's a mekalka, where it's a bad thing for me, so over there it's going to be mutter, and therefore I can go ahead and have bia for the first time on Shabbos.
How is it a bad thing for me? I'm ahead from the fact that I married a basula. Baruch Hashem.
But now going forward, but you're right. That's one side to look at it.
Right.
But right now, going forward, Lamaisa, I destroyed her virginity, and next time when I'm with her, she's not going to be a basula anymore. So it had a ruining aspect as well. And if it has a ruining aspect, so then it's going to be mutter on Shabbos. So those are the two ways of understanding exactly why it would be mutter, according to Rav, to have bia the first time. Now we're going to bring a few we're to try to prove, when we say massive, it usually means a shayla, but again, it depends if you're learning like Rav or like Shmuel. The Gemara is going to, as we'll see, assume one way, but at the end of the day, we're going to try to prove whether you could have bia for the first time on Friday night. Massive Rav Chista, Tinokish Logias Manaliros Venises, Pechamir Menosan al Arba Leilos, Vesila Obim Achatichia Hamaka. So you have a girl who is not Higias Manaliros. I mean, she has never had a period, and she's not even old enough to have a period. And now she gets married. So Beit Shammai says we give her 4 nights. She gets 4 nights, and if she has blood for 4 nights in a row, so then we assume that it's from the Dam Besulim, because it's not the Dam Nida, and therefore she can keep going. It's unclear why Beit Shammai says you only give her 4 nights, because we'll see in a second, Beis Hillel says, as long as she keeps bleeding, since she's not at the stage where she's supposed to be expecting a period, so as long as she keeps having blood, so you assume that it's Dam Besulim. And what do you notice from here? You notice that it's different halacha than it is nowadays. Nowadays, you have bia and then you're poresh, as the Gemara told us. Back then, it seems clear from this Gemara that they could have bia more than one time. Nowadays, you have bia one time, and now she's aser for the 7 days or for whatever until she becomes mutter, even the first night. Over here, it's clear in the Gemara that, again, we'll see, even in the case where she was Higiyas Manaliros, but it's clear that the Dam Besulim was not a reason for them to separate, and that's why honeymoons don't work so well nowadays. But that's why, over there, we see that the Dam Besulim was not a reason, and the only reason you have to separate is if there was a chashash, if we were worried that it was time for the Dam Nida. So in this case, where there's no worry that she's going to have the Dam Nida, you can have bia as many times as you want. Again, Beis Hillel still draws the line and says until she stops bleeding. Because once she stops bleeding and then she starts again, then you have to assume that what? She came to the time that she's now having periods. But if she hasn't stopped bleeding yet, then the first 5, 6, whatever amount of times, he doesn't give an amount, the first few times, as long as you keep going and she keeps bleeding, you can still attribute that to the Dam Besulim, to the breaking of the hymen. Again, once she stops, you know the hymen is broken. Now if she sees blood again, what do you have to assume? You have to assume that the time came and that she was Higiyas Mana and she had a period. But now, Higiyas Mana Liros Venises, for our purposes here. Now the time came and she gets married, Velo Rasa. And she didn't see, which is very interesting that Rashi says that, because that implies what we do nowadays. Because most women, all women, I'm safe to say, nowadays have had their period before they get married. So it seems like the Gemara is not even discussing that. It sounds like the Gemara agrees that if she's had a period before she gets married, now when she has bia for the first time and she sees blood, now you need to be choshesh that any other blood is going to be dam nida. And again, that seemingly we have to separate after the first bia. But in this case, she never had blood before. She never had a period, but she's old enough to have the period. So what do you do now? Beit Shammai omrim nos nilalai larishon. Again, very hard to understand. He says you give her the whole first night. He doesn't explain. What does that mean? Chances are the first night she's not going to have her nida. But he says like you'd have the whole first night, but after the first night, that's it, you're done. You have to separate, you have to be choshesh. But for whatever reason, you don't have to be choshesh the first night she's going to have her period. Beis Hillel omrim ad motzei Shabbos. Arba leilos. You can go 4 nights. Now we're going to see in a second on the other side of the Gemara that it's talking about, the way the Rashi understands it, it's talking about when you haven't had a full bia yet. Once you had a full bia, so once she's Higiyas Manaliro, she's old enough to have a period. Once you have a full bia, and the Besulim is basically done, now you need to separate like we do, because any more blood will be Dam Nida. You need to be choshesh that the Dam Nida is going to come. But it seems like the Gemara here is saying, and we'll see it in a second on the top of the next page, but Hill is saying you could keep trying for 4 nights. Starting Wednesday night. And that's why 4 nights. But what do you see here? Before we see Fri Jun in the Gemara, you can go until Motzei Shabbos for 4 nights. What does that imply? If you missed night 1, if you have strike 2 on night 2, now it's Friday night and you haven't done the bia yet, what do? According to Beis Hillel, you could keep going. So this seems to prove that you could have bia even on Friday night for the first time. We'll see in a second on the top of Rashi. Rashi will put it together. So my lav di ilo boil matzi boil afilu b'Shabbos is that Gemara which is saying you go 4 nights, which includes up to Motzei Shabbos. That means that you could have bia for the first time, even Friday night. Look at Rashi. Hanach arba leilos ad Motzei Shabbos dikchani lahachi tani lahu. Rashi says this is what it means. Dilo boil beila gemura, that if you haven't done a full penetration, this is a question that comes up nowadays. The chassan has no idea what he's doing. chassan class, whatever, usually has no idea what he's doing. So now, he doesn't know if he, right, we say you have bia and then you separate. Well, did I have a full bia? Did I not have a full bia? If she bleeds, then you have to separate. Let's say she doesn't bleed. It's a common question that comes up a lot. She didn't bleed, and you're not sure if you fully penetrated or not. If you fully penetrate, so then for sure you have to separate, even if she bleeds, even if she doesn't bleed.
Wouldn't the woman know?
No, she doesn't. She doesn't know what the feel. I mean, hopefully, she doesn't know what the feeling of a full penetration is like. So again, if she bleeds, you're done. And this is a common problem, which also happens where she doesn't bleed fully the first time. You have to separate because there was blood. And then when they have bia the second time, after she has to wait like 2 weeks, if you didn't finish it the first time, then she can have blood the second time, and then you got to wait another 2 weeks. Very frustrating. That's why I always say, finish it, and that's it. But obviously easier said than done to a chassan. So what do we say over here? So we're saying over here, Dilo Baal Be'ila Gemura Matzili Mibal. It seems to imply, so Rav Chitz is learning Einachanami. If you have a full bia the first time, you're done. You got to separate, you got to be worried that she's going to have her period. Again, we're talking about a woman who has reached the stage to have her period. But if you didn't have a full bia, so matzi limibal, you can go ahead and keep having bia. V'chol dam shu motzi tamid barosav have a dam basilim. You can attribute, what are we learning? The chiddush is, you can attribute dam for the first 4 nights to dam basulim, to the breaking of the hymen. V'shamina mina nami demutter livo bechabur b'shabbos. Again, only if you didn't have a full bia. If you had a full bia, you're done. If you didn't have a full bia, again, we don't pass like this because it seems that if we don't have a full bia and there's blood, you got to separate. But he's saying that if you, the chiddush is that if you don't have a full bia and there's blood, you could keep going until you have the full bia. But what does that imply? If you had half a bia, so now, even though you're still going to be making a chabura, again, we don't hold that it's only a full chabura. You can't make any chabura. There's still half of the hymen left. So it sounds like ad arba leilos, you could keep trying for 4 nights to have a full bia, which implies that Friday night you could try to have a full bia as well, which implies that you could have bia on Friday night. Amarava lo lebar mi Shabbos. No, when it says 4 nights, it means 4 nights to Saturday night, excluding Shabbos. Gemara says that's ridiculous. Amalei Abaye v'had motzei Shabbos arba leilos katani. It's one thing if you tell me until Saturday night. If you tell me I'm going away till next Monday, then maybe you're coming back on Wednesday for a day. But if I'm saying I'm going away for 7 nights until next Wednesday, and there's 7 nights until next Wednesday, then sorry, you're going away till next Wednesday, or you're lying. The Gemara says until Saturday night, 4 nights, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, 4 nights. That includes Friday night. Ella Amarava, Rava says no. What's our Mishnah talk? Our Gemara talking about? Kishe Baal. They had full bia. And what's the chiddush? That even with full bia, where you already finished, again, the Gemara is assuming that once you have full bia, the hymen is totally broken and there's no more chabur on Shabbos. So if it's a full bia, so then what's the chiddush? The chiddush is even with a full bia, you could keep going for 4 nights, because any blood that you find for those first 4 nights are going to be dam besulim. Whatever is left over, as we'll see in a second. If it's true that it's not giving us, it's only giving us the heter of dam besulim for 4 nights and not telling us you could actually have bia for the first time on Friday night, so my kamashalan, what are you teaching me? What's the chiddush? What do you have to tell me 4 nights, including Friday night? Just tell me any 4 nights. You can go ahead and have bia for 4 nights in a row. What do you have to tell me 4 nights to Motzei Shabbos? Any 4 nights, you keep going. If you, for whatever reason, you don't get married on Wednesday night, you could have bia Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What are you teaching me 4 nights through Shabbos? It seems like your DAF is telling me the 4 nights, including Shabbos. It's telling me no. That even if you had the full bia already, you can go ahead and be mibal b'Shabbos. What's the havmin that you wouldn't be able to have bia on Shabbos if you already had the full bia? What's the nafkamina? What's the worry? Kiddush Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel, Pirza dechuka mutter likanes ba b'Shabbos v'afa pi shemeishir tzraros. No, you had a full bia. There still might be a little bit of besulim left. You had a full bia, you basically got rid of them. There's still a possibility that there's a little bit of blood left. So we should say it's us to be boal on Shabbos, Friday night, to do the 3rd bia Friday night, let's say. No. We're saying because of Sveika, we're not going to go ahead and say you can't go ahead and do it. Is it possible blood will come out? It's possible. But what will that be? That'll be a davar sheina miskavein. It's not necessarily a psik reisha, and it'll be fine, assuming you hold davar sheina miskavein is mutter. But again, that's not for now. But the point is, the Gemara is saying you originally learned it and saying, you could have the bia for the first time on Shabbos. You're right. You could learn the brisa like that, and this could be giving you a heter to have the bia on Shabbos. But it can also be learned that it's not giving you a heter to have the first bia on Shabbos, and all it's telling you is that you have 4 nights to attribute it to the Dam Basulim. Why didn't you just tell me any 4 nights? Why do you tell me Friday night? Because it's giving you a heter that even if you had a full bia beforehand, you could have the bia on Shabbos, and you don't have to be worried that maybe there's a little bit of leftover Dam left, and that'll be considered to be a chabura. That's not a psik reisha, that's not common, and therefore, even if it happens, it's not your fault, quote unquote, and therefore you can go ahead and have the second, third, whatever, 4th night on Friday night, but in a chanami it wouldn't allow you to have the first night on Friday night. So those are the 2 ways to learn it. So again, we don't prove either way. Anytime we have one of these masas and we reject it, we don't necessarily say you can use it as a proof for the one who wants to hold that you can have bia Friday night for the first time, but you can't say that you have to learn it like that, because it might just be giving you the chiddush that you can go ahead and have bia for the 3rd time on Friday night when you've already broke the basulim, and you don't have to be worried about a little bit of leftovers.
What about that 3rd time that it's a chashash on makav patish on binyan?
It's too deep for me. I don't know. It's too deep. Ma'akev patish on binyan, but you ready? What do you mean? You already did binyan the first time?
No, you didn't do a full, and therefore
that's again. It sounds like the Gemara again.
You didn't do a full, so now
interesting.
Now you still have some.
You did no ikishabal again. You did a full. There might just be a little bit of leftover dam basulim left, but the Gemara doesn't seem to be worried that you did a full.
Leftover dam, then you don't have a full binyan then.
Is that true? I don't know. I don't know the mitzias of binyan when it comes to this. I don't know. I'm saying I don't know at what point it's considered to be a full binyan and not considered a full binyan. It's a good shaila for another time. I'm not sure when that other time is, but it's a good shaila for another time. We'll find time.
7 years.
In the next cycle, right. Every cycle you have to get it to. No, I don't even think the next cycle. We're not going to get to the next cycle. At some point, Mirza Hashem. What?
No pun intended.
We'll make time, yes. No pun intended. Okay. We'll keep that off the record. Masiv Rav Yosef. Chasan, now we're going to try to bring another proof whether you could have bia for the first time on Friday night or not. Chasan pater mikriyat shema laila harishon ad motzei Shabbos im lo asa maisa. If the chasan did not finish the maisa, again, he didn't have the bia. Let's forget about finishing. He didn't have the bia for whatever reason. He didn't have the bia the first night. He was too tired. He fell asleep. Whatever it is, he's pater until motzei Shabbos if he didn't do the maisa. What does that imply? He's pater even Friday night. Why is he pater Friday night? Because he's busy having the bia. That implies you could have the bia Friday night. My love the Torah de Bailim Yibal is not that he's busy, that he's figuring out exactly how to have the bia, he's thinking in his mind, he's strategizing, whatever he's doing over there. So we see even Friday night, he's busy and he's pater from Kriyat Shema, i.e. you could have bia on Friday night. Amar le'abai lo, the Torah de lo boil. No. Friday night, he can't have the bia. So what's he busy with? Why are we telling him he's pater from Kriyat Shema? Because he's so upset that he couldn't do it the first 2 nights, that now he's having bitzar. It's not that he's torrid in the mitzvah of osek b'mitzvah pater mina mitzvah. It's that he's just depressed that he hasn't been able to have bia the first 2 nights.
Trying to find a head to his.
So the Gemara says, ridiculous. Amar le Rava mishum tirda pater abai. Come on. Anytime somebody's depressed, so he's going to be pater from Kriyat Shema, half the world's going to be pater from Kriyat Shema every single night. Elameata tavat tzvinasa b'yam halchanami de pater. If the guy's drowning in the sea, he's going to be pater from Kriyat Shema? That's crazy. Well, v'chitema halchanami, you're right. Okay, fine, we give it to you. If the guy's drowning in sea, we're going to be pater from Kriyat Shema. But the point is, the Gemara says, every time somebody's depressed, anytime somebody has a lot of stress, he's going to be pater from Kriyat Shema, nobody's going to be coming to shul anymore. V'amar Rav Abba bar Zivda amar Rav, Avel chayi b'chol ha-mitzvos hamuras b'Torah, chutz min ha-tefillin shenemar ben pe'er. Right, an Avel is pater, we only hold the first day, because it's not right for the tefillin, which is called the pe'er, to be on the head of an Avel. But what do we see? An Avel is chayiv in all of the mitzvos, even though what? Even though he's very depressed, he's very stressed, he's thinking about the mace. So what do we see here? That your state of mind of being depressed, of being stressed, is not a petur for Kriyat Shema, because even an Avel is chayiv in Kriyat Shema. So how can you go ahead and tell me that the Avel is talking? How can you go ahead and tell me that it's talking about Friday night, and it's not talking about that you're allowed to have bia Friday night, and he's pater from Kriyat Shema anyway because he's thinking, because he's all stressed out? That's crazy, because you see that an Avel is still chayiv in Kriyat Shema. And therefore, what must it be? It must be that when the thing tells you that you're pater from Kriyat Shema on Friday night, why you pater? Because you're busy figuring out how to do bia when that night. Proof that you could have bia even on Friday night.
Is this an onen or a novel?
No, Avel.
So how's he pater from Tzvi?
He's pater the first day. When you bury somebody, you're pater the first. We're pater even the first. You're pater the first day. If you have a what?
Isn't he an onen at that point?
No. If you bury somebody here, let's say you have
4 hours after.
No, you bury somebody at 9 o'clock in the morning. So you get home at 10 o'clock. You still don't put on tefillin. Halach is you still don't put on tefillin, even that morning, even after you buried somebody. You bury somebody in Eretz Yisrael at night. You don't put on tefillin the next. You don't put on tefillin the first day of Avelis. It's the first day again.
You don't?
Nope. Ela Amarava, should know of it. Ela Amarava, Tanaihi. So what does Rava say? So Rava says that it's a Tanai. Well, why does Rava have to say anything, Rashi? Ela Amarava, Vadei lo mitzvahs letrusei hadachas an patim mikriyat shema bishum de lo matzi bail. You can't tell me, Abai, that the reason he's pater from Kriyat Shema is that he's pater because he's bitzar. Dim kain lo have a patur dehalo tarid b'davar mitzvah. He's not in the davar mitzvah. So what's the pshat here? Ela Amarava, if you want to say it, so then Tanaihi, then you could say it's a machlokes Tanaim, whether what? Whether you actually pater the first night or not. Ditanachada, because we have one Mishnah that says Im lo asa ma'aseh b'rishon pater af b'sheni pater af b'shlishi. You have one Mishnah it says that you're pater from Kriyat Shema. What's shlishi? Shlishi is Friday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. So we see that one of them says that you're pater even on the third night, because seemingly what? You're going to go ahead and do the biyah. Mutter to do the biyah Friday night. V'tani idach rishon v'sheni pater shlishi chayav. And you have another brisa which says that the first and the second night is pater, but shlishi you're going to be chayav. So he's just proving over here that what? You see that this Mishnah which we brought, chasan pater mikriyat shema layla rishon on Motzei Shabbos, is going like the other Mishnah which says im lo asa ma'aseh b'rishon pater ab b'sheni pater ab b'shlishi. So again, it's going according to Rava. The two Mishnayos are going, or the two brisas are going based on whether you hold it's mutter to do the thing on Friday night or not. Again, Rava is throwing out the idea that when you're stressed, you're pater. So then why do you have a brisa which says that you read Kriyat Shema Friday night? The other brisa says you don't read Kriyat Shema Friday night. It's based on the machlokas whether you can have biyah Friday night or not. If you hold you can have biyah Friday night, then you're going to be pater from Kriyat Shema Friday night. If you hold that you can't have biyah Friday night, then you're going to be chayav in Kriyat Shema Friday night. There's only one problem. Abaye. What's Abaye going to say? Abaye holds that you're going to do it even bitzar. So what's the machlokas? Then you would always be pater from Kriyat Shema Friday night. Whether you're doing it or you're not doing it. If you're doing it, then you're busy thinking about it. And if you're not doing it, then you're busy thinking about how you're not doing it. So either way, you should be pater. So what's the one who says you're going to be chayav on Friday night? So let's see. So Abaye hasam nami betir depligi. So Abaye quotes no and says those two brises are arguing whether, in fact, you're going to be pater when it's only bitzar. One of them which says, again, assuming you're not going to be doing it Friday night. So the one which says that you're still pater is going to hold that you're pater, like I say, even when it's just because of stress. And the other one who says that you're still chayiv is going to hold like you, Rava, that when you're stressed, that's not enough of a reason, and therefore it says you're going to be chayiv on the third night, even if you're not doing the biyah. Fine, but again, we don't have necessarily the way to look, because if we learn like Abaye, so then this is not a proof. V'hani tanai ki hani tanai, it's a similar machlokas. The Tanya Konis said besula lo yivo betchila b'Shabbos v'chachamim matim. You see it mefurash, and again it gives you the whole question. Why don't we just bring this right away? But you see mefurash that it's machlokas that Akonis says besula lo yivo b'Shabbos, and the chachamim say matirim. So we're going to finish in 1 second. But again, we don't necessarily have a proof there because we can learn the brisa like Rav is saying that you see that you're pater from Kriyat Shema Friday night because you might be going to do the biyah. But you also have Abaye who's saying no, it's not why you're pater from Kriyat Shema Friday night. You're pater because you're going to be mitza'ar, you're going to be worried that you can't do it. You're going to be upset that you can't do it. But again, we still haven't brought a proof either way. But now we have a mefurish brisa which says that there's a machlokes if you're allowed to have biyah the first night or not on Friday night. Man chachamim. So now the Gemara says, who are these chachamim who say you're allowed to have biyah the first night on a Friday night? Amar Rabba, Rabbi Shimon Damar Davar Sheinu Miskavin Mutter. It's Rabbi Shimon who holds that a Davar Sheinu Miskavin is going to be Mutter. Now, the Meforshim, the Rishonim ask, we're not going to get into it, but the Rishonim ask, why does it have to be Rabbi Shimon according to Rabba? Why can't it be even Rabbi Yehuda and what? What do we say in the beginning of this year? It could be Rabbi Yehuda, Davar Sheinu Miskavin is Aser, and Mekalkel. So it's interesting that Rabbi is saying that if you hold that you could, right? They say, who's these chacham who say you could have biyah Friday night? It must be that they hold like Rabbi Shimon who holds Davar Sheinu Miskavin is Mutter. It's not true. We said in the beginning of this year that Davar Sheinu Miskavin is Aser, and it still might be okay if you could find me a case of Mekalkel, and we actually went both ways, Mifgat Pakin and Chibure Mechbar. But that's just interesting. But either way, Rabba holds that this is within Rabbi Shimon. The Chamim are Rabbi Shimon, and the reason that it's mutter is because Davar Sheinu Miskavin is going to be mutter. And again, if you say Mifgat Pakid, so then it's Ladam Hutzarech, and we don't care that the Pesach comes, because you're doing it for the Dam. And if it's Chibure Mechbar, so then we don't care that the Dam comes because the Hanas Atzmo, and the blood comes, But Amalei Abaye says there's a problem. We're going back to the beginning of the thing, but we already answered this. But Amalei Abaye, but Rabbi Shimon holds b'psikresha. So very nice. Rabbi Shimon holds that if you don't have intent to bring blood, Lamaisa the blood comes anyway. Or if you don't have intent to make a Pesach, but the Pesach comes anyway, and it's b'psikresha, it's definitely going to come. So even Rabbi Shimon would hold that it would be usher in that case. We're saying no. Amarlei lo kehalalu bavliim she'ein bekiyin behatia elayesh bekiyin behatia. No. The reading that it's going to be mutter is because it's not a psik reisha, as I explained in the beginning of the shir. Because there are people that are bekiyin behatia. There are people who know how to have bia on an angle. And if they have bia on the angle, so then it's not for sure going to cause blood. If it's not a psik reisha, so then even if it causes blood, it's going to be mutter according to Rabbi Shimon because it's a davar she'eno miskavin. Im kain, now the Gemara says you can't have your cake and eat it too. Im kain tored lama, then why you put it from kriyat shema? Again, if you're in fact a baki who knows how to do it, so why are you going to be put it from kriyat shema? It's an interesting question. It seems to be not even a Friday night question. It seems like if you're like a professional, whatever you want to call it, if you're a guy who knows how to have the bia, and you know how to, not only you know how to bia, you know how to do it in a way that you're not going to have any blood, so then why are you put it from kriyat shema? What are you nervous about? You're a pro already. You've done this before. Hopefully not. So the Gemara says no. L'she'eno baki. Very interesting. So it's saying now that the heter, if you want to call it a heter, or the person who's pater from kriyat shema is only an eno baki. It's an amateur, the way that everyone should be. But a baki is not going to be pater from kriyat shema. So you can't have everything. Either you're going to be a baki, you're going to know exactly how to do it, and you're going to be chayiv in kriyat shema, or you're not going to know what you're doing. You're going to be all nervous. You're going to be running a million things through your mind, and you're going to be pater in kriyat shema. Fine. So Gemara says, Yomru baki mutter sheino baki aser. So then when it's talking about kriyat shema, so then why does it say that you're pater? It should say that a baki, when it's talking about Friday night, so it should say a baki is mutter and an eno baki is aser. Why do the chachamim say matirin? Why do they just say that it's mutter? Lamaisa, you have two different types of people. Rov bekiyin hain. And again, this is what I started with, which is so interesting, that they're saying at that time, Rov bekiyin hain, most of them were bekiyin and knew how to do this atiyah. And again, it just makes me question the whole fact that dam besulim was even a discussion, and that the fact that there was even a gzeira, and that you have to have dam besulim. Lamaisa, it seems like at the time of this Gemara, Rov bekiyin hain, most people knew how to do it in a way, so how does anything ever prove anything? That means
So
that the
get
guy...
married on Monday.
What?
If that's the case.
Get married any time.
Get married on
And how could you have any proof from anything? Lamaisa, when they're in high school, so everybody's a baki, and Lamaisa, everybody knows how to do it, and that's it. And so obviously, it seems like Rov Bekin still means that until they're getting married, they're not bakis, and that a girl who is mizana at some point, we're not going to be able to prevent the fact that she's going to have blood, because if you could, then again, it's just like a spiral that will never end. But it sounds like Rov Bekin, at least at the time that they get married, so they're considered to be Bekin, and therefore what? Therefore they could do it on Friday night. Why? Either might be dam, it's a davar she'eno miskavin, or as I was saying, not in the Gemara, even if the davar she'eno miskavin is aser, it's going to be makalkel. It's a psik reisha. No, it's not a psik reisha because Rov Bekin. So that, again, the Gemara doesn't say all these points here, but would that mean that an eno baki, seemingly the Gemara is saying, an eno baki would not be able to do it on Friday nights?
How can you be a baki if you haven't done it before?
Again, some people are naturals. I don't know.
How would you know you're a baki until you've done it?
You took a good chassan class. You took a teacher. I don't know. You know what you're doing.
Married to more than one.
Stop. For Rov Bekin. But it sounds like if you're not a baki, then it sounds like, because again, this is getting rid of the psik reisha aspect. If you say davar she'eno miskavein, it doesn't matter. If you say that you're not a baki, then it's going to be a psik reisha. Even if you hold davar she'eno miskavein is mutter, psik reisha, you're definitely going to make blood, it's going to be aser. So it sounds like Rov Bekin, if you're a baki, and that's what it was saying. It was saying, v'chachamim matirin, chachamim were matir, a baki, to go ahead and have bia for the first time on Friday night, because even if blood comes out, it's either going to be mekalkel if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, or it's going to be a davar she'eno miskavein like Rabbi Shimon. But if you're not a baki, you cannot have bia for the first time on Friday night. So we're going to end with this last line: Amalei Rava Baruch Rav Chan and Labai Elamehata Shushvinin Lama Mapa Lama. If the guy's a baki, so what do I need shushvinin for? What's a shushvinin? So they used to have, we don't have it anymore, which is another discussion. They used to have shushvinin. They used to have people that would watch. They wouldn't actually watch the bia seemingly, but they would be there before and after.
Clean sheet.
And a mappa lama. Why do you need to have a mappa? Why do you have to have the sheet? So what are they looking for, these shushvinin, when they go in the room? Well, they're looking both mitzad chasan and mitzad kala. What are they looking for from the chasan side? What do they want to make sure?
Blood.
What?
Blood.
He wants no. They want to make sure that he didn't take the blood and throw it away. Because what's the blood going to do? The chassan, if he's, again, you don't want to marry a guy like this, but seemingly, if you marry a guy like this, he's going to what? Maybe he's going to just want to have, he wants to be with this woman. So what does he do? He marries her, and he gives a ksuva and everything, and he has bia with her, and there's blood, because she's a besula, as she said she was. Now what's he going to do? He's going to take this blood, he's going to clean everything up with the things, he's going to hide the evidence, he's going to taina, she was in a besula, I don't have to give her ksuva, and that's it. And he'll be able to divorce her because she was mizana between the time that they did Erisin and Nisuin. It's a lot of work, but people are willing to do these things to be with this woman. So they have to have the shishvin in there to make sure that he doesn't pull the shtick. What do we need shishvin for the woman for? To make sure that what? To make sure that she doesn't put on sheets that have blood on it. Because what's she going to do? She's going to be mizana. She's going to be a between. She's not going to be a basula. But she's going to put down sheets that have blood on it so that it'll look like what? It'll look like she bled the first time. He'll think that she was really a basula because he doesn't know what he's talking. He doesn't know what he's feeling, even though he's seemingly a bucky and doing hatiyah. He doesn't necessarily know what it feels like to be with a basula versus not a basula. Now they're going to find blood all over the sheet. She's going to say, I was obviously a basula. And therefore, she was able to be mizan in between. She was able to not be a basula, get the ksuva basula, whatever you want to say. And therefore, we need this shushvinin to go ahead. Again, hopefully our marriages are built on trust. We don't have to worry about this. But lamaisa, this is a mitzias where we have to worry about it. So, elamayata shushvinin lama mapalam. If you're talking about a guy who knows what he's doing and he's a bucky, and there's not going to be any blood, so then what do you need this shushvinin for? Lamaisa is going to do it without any blood, and there's not going to be any ramos, because lamaisa, Rashi explains very interestingly, mimanashach. If the guy does hitiyah, and there is no blood, and he comes and says what? She's not a basula, so what's she going to say? I am a basula, check me out. Because again, her hymen's not broken because he did it in a way. And again, this makes you wonder, like there's a way to do it where her hymen's not going to be broken, so he can't taina, she's not a basula, because if he does, and she's going to say, I am basula, and you can look at me now, I still have my basulim. So what do we still need shushvinin for? So Gemara says, Amalei hasam shema yira v'yoved. We still need to have the thing, Rashi says, shema lo yate. Because what's he going to do? Maybe he's going to mess up. He's a bucky, but he's not perfect. Shema lo yate, v'yotzi dam, and there's going to be dam, v'yovdenu, and he's going to throw it out. That means even though you're right, the plan, if everything goes according to plan, there will be no blood. But it might not go according to plan. And if it goes according to plan, you're right, we don't need shushvinin, because if he taina, she's not a basula, she'll say, I'm a basula, take a look. But if it doesn't go according to plan, and there is blood, so then we want to make sure we have shushvini there, because then what he's going to do, he's going to take the blood, he's going to throw it away in taina, she wasn't a basula. That's what the second part that I said. But the first part, we still need the shushvinin, because if things don't go right, so now there's going to be dam. If we don't have the shushvinin, so then he's going to take the blood, he's going to throw it away, he's going to say she's not a basula. Therefore, we want to have the shushvinin to make sure that he doesn't pull this shtick. Shkoyach.